Imagine acing your exams in South Africa, getting that university acceptance. You're ready for the next chapter, but then there's no space for you at university.
It's a tough situation, a real crisis.
So today we're diving deep into the funding crisis that's hitting South Africa's public universities.
We've got reports from university leaders and policy experts.
Even a glimpse into how the UK is tackling similar issues.
Right, because it's a complex problem with a lot of different factors at play.
So we'll be looking at how government decisions, rising costs,
And of course, the financial aid system.
are affecting students and the institutions themselves.
Ultimately, impacting the country's future.
Okay, let's unpack this problem,
Absolutely.
because our sources paint a pretty bleak picture. And it's not just about a few students here and there being squeezed out.
No, it's much bigger than that.
So one article highlights some really staggering numbers.
Yeah, 337,000 students have bachelor passes but are competing for just 202,000 university spots.
That's a massive gap right from the start.
It is. And then you've got the universities themselves struggling financially, even with tuition going up.
Exactly. We're seeing multi-million-dollar deficits,
Stellenbosch University
which is considered well-resourced.
is projecting a 6-year deficit of $1.4 billion.
Wow, if Stellenbosch is struggling, I can only imagine the situation at other institutions.
Right, and then there's NSFAS, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which is meant to help students who can't afford tuition.
But NSFAS is completely overwhelmed.
Yes, one article mentioned over 150,000 student applications that were unprocessed by the end of November.
The stress and uncertainty for those students must be immense.
Absolutely, and then things get even more complicated when you hear reports of students living in shacks due to a lack of accommodation.
While NSFAS allegedly pays these inflated fees for substandard housing.
Right, so it seems like funds might be misused while students are facing real hardship.
It's a very frustrating situation.
It is, and it really highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability within NSFAS.
So we've got limited spots, skyrocketing costs, and a struggling financial aid system.
It's a perfect storm.
So what's at the root of all this?
Well, declining government subsidies for higher education seem to be a major factor.
One article even stated that the government plans to reduce post-school education and training funding.
By our $5.6 billion between 2024 and 2025.
It's essentially the government saying, do more with less.
While the demands on the system increase.
No wonder universities are being pushed to their limits.
And this could have devastating long-term consequences.
Not just for these students, but for the entire country.
Exactly. If South Africa isn't investing in its future workforce,
How can it compete globally?
it's a big concern.
One article even mentioned that South Africa is falling behind countries like Egypt in research output.
Suggesting budget cuts are already hindering progress.
It's a worrying trend.
It is, and the human cost of this crisis is also significant.
Definitely. So many students are seeing their dreams deferred or even denied,
Imagine working so hard, getting accepted into university.
only to be told there's no place for you.
Heartbreaking.
And then there's the financial burden this places on students and families.
Especially those who don't qualify for NSFAS but still can't afford tuition.
That's the missing middle.
And they're in a really tough spot.
They might take on massive loans
Face years of debt,
or even have to abandon their education,
which of course perpetuates inequality.
where access to education depends on your family's financial status.
It's a bleak situation, but our sources do offer some potential solutions.
Okay, so there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
There is. Universities are being urged to get creative,
Okay.
with cost-cutting measures being a major focus.
Right.
Stellenbosch, for instance, is mandating an 8% budget cut.
Across the board.
Across all departments, yes.
Wow.
But it's not about slashing blindly.
Right.
It's about operating more efficiently, more strategically.
So trimming the fat.
Exactly.
I also read about exploring alternative funding models,
Like what?
like crowdfunding
Oh,
and seeking ethical research funding.
crowdfunding for universities.
Yeah,
That's a novel concept.
it is. How effective could that really be?
It's certainly worth exploring.
Yeah.
There's also a push for universities to align their financial plans with sustainable development goals.
So that would make them more attractive to donors and investors.
Precisely, especially those who are interested in supporting those goals.
Makes sense.
And it's not just about looking inward.
Okay.
Collaboration is another key theme that emerges from the sources.
Collaboration between whom?
Well, starting with the universities themselves.
Okay, so like sharing resources.
Sharing resources, expertise.
And even joint programs.
Exactly. Strength in numbers.
Right. And what about collaborations beyond academia?
Those are crucial as well.
Yeah.
One article highlights the importance of working with industry partners and philanthropists.
So building those bridges.
Could unlock new funding avenues and create more student opportunities.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach is needed,
I think so.
because no single solution will magically solve this crisis.
No magic bullet.
One source provides an interesting perspective from the UK,
Okay.
which has faced similar funding challenges.
They have.
What can we learn from their experience?
I think it highlights the power of advocacy.
In what way?
Well, UK universities have run campaigns to raise awareness
About
the importance of higher education and the impact of these funding cuts.
So it's not about waiting for the government to act.
No, it's about making your voices heard, garnering public support, and pushing for change.
And they've also been successful in finding creative solutions.
They have, thinking outside the box to address those funding gaps.
It seems like South Africa could learn a lot from the UK's approach.
Definitely. The key takeaway is that this isn't just for universities to solve on their own.
Right.
It requires a collective effort
As
from the government, institutions, businesses, and individuals.
we've been exploring these sources, I'm struck by this bigger question that's lurking in the background.
Oh, what's that?
What is the value of education?
That's a good question.
If we genuinely believe it's the key to a brighter future for individuals and for society, shouldn't we be doing everything we can to make it accessible,
Absolutely.
even amidst a funding crisis?
Yes.
Are there untapped resources or innovative approaches we haven't even considered yet?
It's worth thinking about.
It is, because this isn't just about numbers on a balance sheet.
No, it's not.
This is about investing in human potential, innovation, and progress.
Right.
If we're not willing to make that investment, what does that say about our priorities?
That's a powerful point.
It's something for everyone to think about.
Not just policymakers.
As all of us.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more fascinating point raised in our sources that I think is worth exploring.
Okay.
It has to do with the research agenda itself.
The research agenda.
One article argues that we need to rethink what we research
Okay.
and how we communicate that research to the public.
Interesting. In what way?
Well, for one, it suggests that more attention needs to be paid to research infrastructure
Okay.
and the support systems for researchers.
So making sure that researchers have the resources and support they need to do their best work.
Exactly. But it goes beyond that.
How so?
The article also highlights the importance of aligning research agendas with societal needs.
So instead of just chasing the latest academic trends,
Right.
we should be focusing on research that can actually address the challenges facing our communities.
Precisely. And then there's the question of how we communicate those findings.
Because it's not enough to just publish in these obscure academic journals.
No, it's not.
We need to make sure that research is accessible and understandable to the public,
Yes.
so that it can actually inform policy decisions and drive positive change.
Exactly.
It's about making research matter,
Not just for academics.
but for everyone.
Absolutely. And that means engaging with the public, telling the stories behind the research, and making sure it's relevant to people's lives.
Making it relatable,
Yeah.
applicable.
This idea of a more engaged and impactful research agenda is something I think we'll be hearing more about in the future.
It's definitely food for thought.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the South African higher education funding crisis.
We have.
We've seen the challenges, explored potential solutions,
Right.
and raised these important questions about the value of education and the role of research in society.
It really has been a deep dive.
It has.
And I think the sources we've explored have given us a lot to consider.
They really have. It's clear that this funding crisis is a multifaceted problem
It is.
with no easy answers.
No.
But I think one thing that comes through loud and clear is that this isn't just about budgets and balance sheets.
You're absolutely right. This is about people.
It is.
It's about students who are being denied opportunities. It's about the future of South Africa.
And its ability to thrive in a rapidly changing world.
Exactly.
And it's about whether we're willing to invest in that future. Our sources suggest that we need to move beyond the rhetoric of prioritizing education.
And put our money where our mouths are.
But perhaps it's also about shifting our mindset.
How so?
What if, instead of viewing this crisis solely as a financial burden,
Yeah.
we saw it as an opportunity
An opportunity for what?
to reimagine the very fabric of higher education?
Interesting.
Could this crisis be the catalyst?
Sure.
A more equitable, accessible, and impactful system for generations to come?
I like the way you're thinking.
That's something for you to ponder as you continue to explore this complex issue.
It's a powerful way to look at it.
Yeah, instead of just focusing on the problems, what if we see this as a chance to really shake things up?
To rebuild and rethink the system as a whole.
Exactly. And it's not about just throwing money at the problem.
No, it's deeper than that.
We need to ask those fundamental questions.
Like what?
What kind of education system do we actually want for South Africa?
Mhm.
What should our priorities be? And how can we make sure everyone benefits, not just a select few?
Those are tough questions.
They are.
And the answers aren't going to be easy to find.
I agree. But at least this deep dive has shown us one thing,
What's that?
that there are people out there who are actively trying to figure this out.
That's true. There are people coming up with creative solutions.
People who are fighting for a better future for these students.
It gives me some hope.
Me too. It's encouraging to see that sense of urgency and determination.
I think that's where the real hope lies.
You're right, not in any single solution.
But in the collective will to make things better.
It's about recognizing the value of education, not just for personal gain.
But as a benefit to society as a whole.
It's about investing in South Africa's future.
An investment that we all have a stake in.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It has.
We've explored this complex issue of the South African higher education funding crisis from all angles.
You've seen the numbers.
Heard the stories of students fighting for their dreams.
But we've also seen those glimmers of hope.
Innovative solutions and a shared determination to make education a pathway to a brighter future for all South Africans.
It's not an easy road ahead.
But we're leaving you with this thought. What role can you play in supporting access to quality education? Doesn't matter how big or small.
Because the future depends on it.